Hi, guys. It's Christopher Lewis, and welcome to Dating Intelligence, the podcast where we give relationship advice from dating to marriage and everything else in between. And always with the goal of helping you to continuously be the best you at all times.
So if you're looking for real, honest information to help you navigate your relationships, we've got you covered.
Got you covered. Hey, Jamie, what's going on?
I feel like you're going to have a little nip slip.
Yeah, my shirt's really open.
He's showing a little
Leave it
skin
that.
today.
Yeah, I'm showing my chest that's bulging out of this thing, if I can get one. All right, guys, we're at Sticky Paw Studios for another episode. We got Travis, our producer in the background, whom we love so much. Hello, Travis.
Hi, everyone. What's going on?
Travis, let me see your shirt. What's on there?
It's avocados.
Avocados. I want to eat you.
Avocado. We'll talk later.
That's so funny. All right, Jamie, what have you been up to?
Oh, man, not much. Excited for summer. Key West coming up in a couple weeks, so I'm super excited to go lobstering with the Ricazas. Shout out to JJ.
I can't believe it's already that time of year. But you told me this earlier, and I still can't believe. I felt like it was only like 5 or 6 months ago, but it's a full year.
It's in a full year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the same time every year, Chris.
I just come here too much now. I think that's why. I'm like, have I been here over a year? It's almost a year.
Yeah.
Actually, we're coming up on a year.
What about you? You have your retreat coming up?
Yes, it's summertime. I'm doing a retreat that I put together off of this podcast convention and met some really great people. And one of those people are actually here today that we're going to introduce her in a minute. But she will not be coming to the first one because I'll ask her for the next one. But I want her to come to our next one. But I'm doing this workshop and just getting a bunch of great people together who know their shit. And we're all going to help each other to grow our own crap out of the water.
And network.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The one thing that I told them at the end of the conversation, I think on our last Zoom call, was like, look, my only reason why I'm doing this is because I want to make sure that our podcast is the #1 dating podcast in the U.S. And then we'll conquer the world after that.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're like well on our way. So
I
we
think
just
so, too.
had LA Times reach out to us. So they're going to do a little article on us. So I'm really excited about that.
I like that. And I also checked that we were actually in the top, 8% of all relationship podcasts right now. So I got to kick about that 8% out in front of us now.
I love it.
We'll seek them out. Destroy them one at a time. Destroy them. All right, guys. So we have an amazing guest today sitting over here looking cute as hell. Today's guest is someone who really pushes the boundaries and challenges herself to be the best authentic self. She's a celebrity psychic, entertainer, public speaker, and author of 8 books. The most recent is Archangels and Ascended Masters. And when she's not jet setting off to see clients or is on the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival, this gorgeous blonde takes time out of her busy schedule to work on her own podcast, Healing Powers Podcast, which tops inside the top 100 on Apple Podcasts. Please welcome Laura Powers to the show.
Woo!
Hi, Laura.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
Good. Did I do my job on your intro? Was it
Yeah,
okay?
you did great.
I didn't know that you're a celebrity psychic.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's actually, I do a lot of things, like a lot of creative people, but that's how I'm most known. Like I work with celebrities. I've been on television quite a bit. I was on Will Ferrell's podcast as a guest. So yeah, it's one of the things I love to do. And, as I started working as a psychic, I pretty quickly got known and started to get media coverage. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that. It's like my day job, even though I love it. It also affords me the flexibility to work on my other creative projects like writing and singing and, modeling and the other things that I do.
And this is why I love the fact that I said your authentic self, because you go after everything that you want to do. And I appreciate that a lot. I love someone who's ambitious, but also is not afraid to go trying something different. So I appreciate that.
Have you ever worked a 9 to 5?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up like most people, just, working. I was actually pretty poor when we grew up. My mom left my father and, she's a single mom with a couple of kids. And so I started working like babysitting when I was 12 and I got my first job when I was 14. And then I was always working. And as I stepped into my psychic ability, I realized, we're not here to work all the time. And, it's this programming of that's how you're kind of supposed to live your life. And I was doing a channeling one time for a client and the message came forward, like, you guys have it all wrong. You should work like 2 days a week and have 5 days a week for yourself. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
But I worked the regular jobs. And then during the recession, I was married and I had a contract position that ended in higher education. And then I just couldn't find a job. And it kind of started this whole shift and journey for me. Started to get psychic training and did continue to consult and do some other work in more traditional work areas. But I just basically started that shift to having my own business and doing more intuitive and creative work as a whole.
How do you get psychic training?
There's many teachers. I teach psychic development right now. I mean, another great way, there's so many YouTube videos and books you can read. Like when I was first getting into this area, I was literally reading a book every, day or two. Like I was just absorbing so much information about this new, because we don't learn that stuff when we're young in school or from our family, most people. But there now, especially with the internet, there's so many teachers out there. And honestly, podcasts are a great way to learn. You know, you just get these ideas and learn from experts so easily now compared to how it used to be.
Have you ever got with someone and you're like, oh, I cannot like pick up on their energy? Like,
so there's an element of how open and closed people are with their energy. A lot of people have no awareness of their energy, but yeah, if someone is very kind of closed, it can be harder. But usually can get something even if it's from the angels telling me about the person.
I love that. And now with the training that you had, this is picking up of like your intuition. You've had this for a long, it's something that you knew that you had for a while, right? And basically just kind of harnessed by going to seek it out the instruction now for it, right?
Yeah. Although I think it's such a different time now if you're growing up now with gifts than when I was little. So I was like the kid in The Sixth Sense. I literally saw ghosts and spirits that in a lot of cases looked like solid people to me. Like I would think, oh, there's a person, and then they'd like walk through a door or do something that obviously a live person is not able to do. And so it was clear to me by observing other people that they couldn't see what I did. And so I just thought I'm crazy, like I'm insane.
How old were you?
This started when I was very young, and then it was actually when I was in college. I didn't talk about it because I didn't want people to think I was crazy.
Right.
And so it wasn't until I was in college that a family friend described a ghost I'd seen but never told anyone about. And that's when I was like, oh, I guess I'm not crazy because he can't see my hallucination. It must be not a hallucination. But yeah, it was really confusing. I would do things like call the cops on a ghost and just, So when I learned that it was all, was real, I was both comforted and also scared because I didn't really know what to do with it at the time. It was such a different time with the internet and, just availability of information on this kind of stuff. Now there's, psychics on TV and like, it's just a very common, a lot more common thing. And there's a lot more teachers that are out there. So yeah, it was definitely a journey for me. But as I stepped into it and learned how to access it, in a boundaried way, it really opened up the magic for me. So I navigate now very intuitively and I have a very magical life. Like I just, will often just kind of manifest and intuit these things. But part of that is, that's the positive side of my psychic abilities.
I like
so
that.
there's not very many things in this life that scare me. Ghosts scare the shit out of me.
Really? They do?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like, I'm so afraid of them that I have to tell myself that I don't believe in them because I'm afraid.
I totally understand. And
I don't want shit moving.
I get that.
I don't like, I feel things. So I'm like, I'm getting out of here. Like that doesn't feel right.
Right.
What I would say to that is just know that you with a body are so much more powerful than a spirit without a body.
Okay.
Right?
How? That's true.
Well,
but I can't see.
because
so you see these videos where they throw people around and shit comes flying off the shelf.
Sure. So in the spiritual realm, it's the same as the physical realm. It's all about your boundaries and what you allow and accept. You have to just own your authority in a space and just know, like, okay, so they have a spirit, but you have a spirit and you have a body. So how much stronger are you than they? Right? They're missing half of that equation.
Okay.
And then the other piece is just following your intuition and, certainly where a place where there's a lot of haunting activity, if you don't like that energy, don't go into that space. Yeah. And then you can totally claim your own space. If you say you have a spirit, that's one of the things I do is help clear spaces as a sort of ghost whisperer. But it's just like boundary wise, it's like you're dealing with a person. You have, if someone's in your house and you don't want them to be like, hey, get out. And then working with divine, helpers like angels, they can act like your bouncer. So let's say you'd call the police in real life. You'd be like, hey, Archangel Michael, you help me with this spirit that's bugging me. And,
do you believe
keep
in
them away
God?
from me. Absolutely. I don't believe in the Judeo sort of Christian God. I was raised Catholic, so I was definitely raised with that belief system. I believe that a lot of the world's religions, there's parts of it that really resonate for me, but I feel as a psychic that what I've gotten is a much more expansive picture than even just humanity. So many of these religions are really based around humans and, I have experienced extraterrestrials. I've I have a much more broad perspective of the whole system.
I find it all very fascinating. I'm Catholic as well, but I'm with you on that. I've only taken out so much of it, which I find fascinating, but the rest of it's just not what I want. So
Especially a lot of the like guilt and sin part.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not a
believe in that.
fan.
Yeah, no,
right.
I'm gonna say no on that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But most of it, yes, I love all that. I love all this, by the way. And so one of my questions I've had just listening to you is the fact that you were saying when you were little, they always say that kids, because they're more pure, so. For instance, like let's say someone has a like for us, like my daughter has ghosty. That's her. That's her. What do you call it? The little ghosty friend or whatever it is. What do they call those? The
imaginary friend.
Thank you. I can't even think of imaginary. Duh. Yeah, an imaginary friend. So she's had an imaginary friend for a long time, and now she's 8 now, and she doesn't talk about him anymore or like that. But the other day she goes, "Yeah, ghosty was with me," and so it makes you wonder and go, which I never discourage that because I want them to be able to have that pure and that whole process of creativity and everything as well. But I always wonder if that's something that is because of their pure and they're so innocent in the creative brain and they're just, they're not tainted yet with the world.
Yeah, I think there's so much programming that we get about how the world is and how we should see things. And also just literally the closer we are to the other side, the more open that channel is. So, as a child, you literally were over there not that long ago.
True.
And you'll see this often with people at end of life or towards end of life where they start to, have visions and see things that most people can't see. And then the same thing happens, with people who have near-death experiences or trauma where it's just that like reestablishes that connection in a way.
Right.
And so much of our perception of the world, I think, is based on what we're taught. Like there's these stories of, the explorers coming from Europe and coming to places where they had never been, and the natives like literally didn't even see the ships, or like they couldn't even, because it wasn't in their frame of reference or worldview.
Right.
It's like they just didn't even see certain things. It's like really fascinating how much our programming impacts literally our perception of what's happening.
Right. The awareness that we were talking about, I always feel like, when you're aware of something, that's when you're most open to something, and that's I feel like you said, the world has programmed us to a point where most of the time we're not aware of things around us. That's as simple as just like you said, like a ship or something around us, because we're so focused on our own shit all the time. So I know I can be a victim of that for sure. So what about you? Do you feel like you have some intuition or anything of that nature that you kind of have to listen to sometimes?
Definitely intuitive. But my mom, like growing up, my mom was like next level. So my mom, she saw things like we had like a ghost, which all my friends thought we were crazy, but he would like move things or things would disappear or we find it in the oven. But sometimes I wonder if my mom like created that, like the older I got. But I don't know if he was really... You're smiling.
I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'm being shown psychically that there was definitely a spirit moving stuff around. And they can. They at least some of them can. It's something that not all of them know how to do. Yeah,
like
that's
we
good.
named him. We named him George.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was like always present, but when we moved, he didn't follow us.
Yeah.
He stayed in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting with spirits because sometimes it's like the space that's haunted and, they decide to be there or maybe they feel stuck there depending on the circumstance or situation.
Chills.
And then sometimes it's like the person, because in my case, I literally would bring them with me. Like they'd come home on the plane with me until I learned how to have those boundaries and say, when I wanted a spirit in there or not.
And then my dad's Native American. So we were all, so he didn't believe in like medications. We did like all natural herbal things. If we had an ear infection, we did like the onion to the ear. He believed in like saging.
Absolutely. It's very
like
powerful.
Our energy. Like if I worked a show or a convention, my dad would come home and want to like clear the space. And so I was kind of raised in that, which I love because it opened my eyes and mind up to being open. So yeah. And then I think I swear my daughter is very like intuitive. Like she just knows things and I'm like, how do you know that? Or sometimes I'll ask her, I'm like, hey, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? And she just knows.
Okay.
So I think she definitely has a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it definitely runs in families. And I've noticed especially the matrilineal line, but I think it definitely can come from both sides. So, when you have it in your family, it's very common. And I do feel that we're in a more kind of spiritual psychic time than we used to. Like the energies are opening up. And so I feel like a lot of the children that are coming through right now are just automatically very psychic, and the energy is more psychic. So interestingly, during COVID is when I started to really teach a lot of psychic training. Like I was already doing it, classes, kind of one-off classes here and there, and private coaching with it. But during COVID is when it was like, I need to teach big classes because suddenly there was a lot of desire for people to really tap in.
And you just went for it and started doing it then at that point, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't think you need to want to be a psychic to get this training. Like this is literally for yourself. In fact, one of the main reasons, I don't think you and I talked about this. One of the main reasons that I started my psychic training was because my marriage ending and like that whole relationship was so intense that I was like, I don't want to ever go through that again. I want to psychically and intuitively see a person better.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, using it for yourself to like navigate, get a sense of people, make better decisions. It's your inner compass.
Right.
And a lot of people have their psychic abilities, but they don't know what they are. They don't know how to use them. They don't know certain tools and tips. So it's really about just living a more intuitive and better life.
Right. See, that I agree with. And this is why the show exists in theory, because it's like, I feel like I read people very well. That's one of the things I pride myself on is when I have an intuition of, and I've always known this since I was a little kid, of talking to someone. And after 5 minutes, I know I can sense everything about the person and who they are, what they do, and if they're hiding something or whatever it is. I love figuring that out. And I pride myself on that as well.
Do you ever feel like you're wrong though? You're like, ooh, I read that wrong.
No, like I feel like sometimes when my favorite is when someone goes, well, that person's not who they say. Then I go, no, but there's an underlying tone that sometimes people put on a show or a face or whatever they're doing. But underneath it all, you see the good in this person. You see this side of a person. I can tell when a person's like really underneath the board, they're kind of evil underneath it all as well.
Evil.
Yeah, not evil. Yes, evil, right? And things like that. So
not nice intentions.
Thank you very much. Not nice, not evil like that. Yeah, but not nice intentions. Thank you, Laura. So I picked that up on people as well, and I usually can tell right away. And I use those people I just walk away from half the time.
What was your first intention or like intuition of me?
Great girl. Always knew that from day one, though, when I met you, because like even though so Jamie, when I first met her, by the way, she's a little, not to say that you're a little standoffish, but you're just in your own zone, which that's that introverted side of us that we have sometimes. Yeah. But underneath it all, when we wouldn't be sitting here today. Let's just put it that way, honestly.
Because it was so long ago.
Yeah, and just meeting her, I was like, oh, she's beautiful, she's this and that. But I don't. When I look at women, especially, yes, I appreciate beauty. I appreciate a lot of things, but what I most appreciate is what's inside of the person. And that's when I look at you, I look inside you first. I'll look at physical or whatever, but then I go, what's inside this person? That's most important. Because all this can go away at some time, but what's inside of you is the one that stays.
But how do you know that off just meeting someone?
It's an energy. It's an energy, right? And also off the energy, Laura, what I do, and tell me if this is kind of, I'm not gonna say crazy, but just, it's fun for me that I always love picking someone in a room who's not talking or is just kind of the loner in the room, because I want to figure that person out. And so I will walk over to that person, start a conversation.
I've seen this.
Yeah, and just start, right, and just start a conversation and all of a sudden they open up to this amazing person that I'm like, why is no one talking to this person? They're the most amazing person in the room. But it could be their mood of the day or something like that as well. It's just lots of things that we all do like that as well. So, and also the last thing is I'm that person where people just come up to me and start telling me their problems all the time. What the hell is that about?
So as you're talking immediately, I just get you're an empath.
Yeah.
So an empath is someone who feels energy from outside their body and their body, and will specifically pick up on other people's energy and emotions. And it is a type of psychic ability from my perspective as a psychic. And in fact, I think it's one of the most powerful abilities.
Hear that, Jamie?
Because you can't lie with your energy. Like what you're talking about. Someone can have a facade, they can show, they can, visually show whatever, but the energy, their emotion, that energy will always be what it is. You can't hide that.
Right.
Whereas, so I'm in a path.
I appreciate that. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think it's a huge compliment.
Yeah, I'm soaking it all in, girl. That's why I can't say it. I was like, thank you, Laura.
It's really powerful. So I'm an empath, but I'm also a clairvoyant where I see, and I pretty quickly realized when I was young that the visual can lie, even in the psychic realm.
Okay. Okay.
So
how do you figure that out for the layman out there? Let's say,
Yeah.
in your meetings, then let's just go off meeting someone, by the way. How does someone figure that out? Just like a quick, not to say that there's a fix all, I'm not asking that, but just to get their intuitions really working.
I think one of the most important things is to literally pay attention to your body. Your body is your first way that you connect with the
Right.
world. And most people are just totally shut down with their body. Like they're just no awareness of what's really going on. We're so trapped in our heads.
Right.
And so pay attention to your breath, pay attention to how you feel around certain people, certain environments. Do you feel energized? Do you feel drained afterwards? There's also a book I would recommend for people that want to just tap more into their body. And it's from a different perspective. It's called What Everybody Is Saying. And it's written by a consultant who works with the FBI, law enforcement, and primarily criminal cases that are tough to solve.
Okay.
And he observes body language and facial expressions and just like what people are saying in very specific detail. And even reading that, I was able to get a better sense of what my body's trying to tell me. Like, so for example, if you like someone, if you want to connect them, you will face them. So I'm trying not to do this because on camera I need to not fully face you, but like as an example, you would fully like your feet, your whole body, your head will like face that person. And then when you don't like someone, you will on some level face away.
Right.
Like maybe you're facing them to be polite, but your feet are pointed away.
And you're not even aware of it half the time, right?
Most people, so I read that book and I started noticing like my feet, like where are my feet going, and it's just fascinating. So paying attention to your body, paying attention to your breath, and then the health is an important aspect of that. So my podcast is called Healing Powers Podcast. It's a mind, body, spirit podcast. And one of the reasons we talk about health and this sort of psychic woo, all of this stuff is because they're so connected. So for example, if you're unhealthy in your gut, that is going to impact your ability to intuit because there's physical mechanisms in there. We're familiar with that expression, gut intuition or gut feeling. Yep. So if you're unhealthy, you'll have a harder time. So really getting healthy, learning to pay attention to the subtle messages that your body is communicating with you is one of the most important things actually to start tuning into your intuition.
Very well said.
I've noticed that in my dating relationships. Like I literally make myself sick. If I'm with someone, I'll get sick, but I'm not sick. But does that make sense to you?
Yeah, depending on the energy of the person, and especially as women, we're so programmed to just like,
which is so confusing because it's not like they're a bad person.
Okay.
So,
but it's maybe just the energy isn't aligned with you, or a lot of people are unconscious of their energy and they're kind of having a taking energy without even being aware of it. They just don't know. Yeah. And so as someone who's sensitive or empathic, you especially have to be cognizant of this. But I would say anyone should start to really pay attention to the patterns of how they feel around certain people and who they feel good with and who they don't. One thing I noticed, for example, is I'm generally a pretty confident person. Like, I just not that intimidated by a lot of things. But if I'm around a man who's lacks self-confidence, I will feel insecure.
Interesting.
So you can even take in those kinds of emotions.
And do the reverse route.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to do with physical. Like this guy that I was seeing, and super wealthy, 9 cars, 3 houses. He had a tiger, like
a tiger.
But
like physical tiger or like a tiger in his pants?
No, like a real
Billimore.
tiger. But I would notice that I would feel insecure around him, and and even later he said to me, "You make me nervous," which I was like, wow, there's this guy super successful.
Yeah.
And in all of the material ways, has it all handled.
Right.
And this was early on in my business when I wasn't as successful in my business as I was. And it just was a really fascinating realization that even if you're an empath especially, but even everybody has at least a little bit of this, I think, that you will pick up on these kinds of emotions from others.
I could see that. It's funny on how when I met her, and I'll never forget this, we're at the Podfest convention, and literally like she's walking down the hall, and I felt like we were the only two in the hall. Like my eyes locked on her because I just felt like this energy drawing me. I was like, who's this? I mean, your walk and your energy was exuding all over the place, right? I mean, you were so statuesque, and she owned it. That power walk where she's confident. You're in control. And I was like, why am I drawn to this woman over here? And I saw something like, hi, just right in front of me, like, I don't know how, and my brain was like, I don't even know how I got here. I'm just standing in front of you now, so I got to say something at this moment. Hi, I'm Christopher. What do you do? Da, da, da. And that was it. It was like this, I think this path that just drew me to you at that point. So, and no one else was in that hallway at that time to me.
Yeah, it was pretty quiet, but I think it's an energy thing. And as an empath, you read the energy and feel that. And I, try to have good positive energy.
No, your positive energy was like, it was very statuesque, very strong, but it was confidence is what it was.
Do you ever come across someone and you're like, ooh, and you're like,
absolutely. And, I just have learned to pay attention. Like if I get that message, even if I don't know why, it's just like, pay attention.
Like,
And I literally have come across where I'm like, that's a serial killer. Okay. Just stay away. People that have no empathy or like there's no emotion. Again, as an empath, I can feel that. That's like, it's very bad.
Okay.
Generally speaking, because if you don't feel emotion, you have no problem doing bad things.
Which is
for the most
basically
part.
a narcissist.
what are like signs of that? Like that you would pick up on?
Well, just as an empath, I literally can feel this coldness. It's like a coldness in there. Like what you're talking about, you felt that energy, that warmth, and then when someone, it's just like where there should be this energy and there's like nothing.
Like dark.
It's, or very heavy.
Okay.
So just to pay attention to that. I think one of the biggest things you can pay attention to is how people interact with others. If someone is really mean or rude or callous to someone else, like that's obviously a red flag.
That's like a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if, especially in a restaurant, like I have no patience for someone that's like dismissive to like help.
Yeah,
or
totally.
It's such a turn off for me and just a non-negotiable.
How do you make, and off that note, how do you make someone aware of that to change that though? Like, let's say, it's sometimes, like we said, we're programmed or it's coming from somewhere. And I always want to know where it comes from. And is it changeable?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think there's certain things, minor things that are changeable, but generally people are who they are. And one of the biggest problems actually in dating and love is people that find a fixer-upper.
Oh, right. Yep.
Like, let's try to transform this person and make them into a better version of themselves or whatever. But I think we really have to be careful with that. First of all, that's really frustrating, and it's tough on both sides, right? You don't want to be on the receiving side of that. But I think on a level, there's two things going on. One is this kind of desire to help, save, or rescue, which if that's your primary like directive in a relationship, that's probably going to be doomed.
Yeah.
Like
and there's a lot of people that do that though.
I'm guilty of that.
Especially
I've done
women.
that before.
I mean, I think we're kind of programmed to do that through society as women. And then the other piece is I think that's coming from a bit of a lack perception, like, oh, that's all I have. Like, instead of like, wow, there is someone out there that treats people well and I don't have to like make them aware and retrain them or whatever.
but it takes a long time for someone to realize that there's someone out there like that. But a lot of people miss it because once again, they either have their template on what they want on a person. And this is why we always say on here, it's like, look, I go, don't go into like a first date or whatever and always have this criteria of what you're looking for. Just be open and listen, first of all, to the person that's across on the other side of you. Because that way you're opening yourself up to maybe meeting that nice person, which I'm sure a lot of women, and for guys as well, there's a lot of people that we've missed along the way because we have our blinders on and this is what we're looking for. She's not my type. He's not my type, that screws up a lot of things, I feel like.
I think it's important to know your non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And those are non-negotiable. Like, that's it. Like, for me, like a smoker, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just can't.
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive to smoke.
Right.
I don't want to be around smoking. Bless you if you smoke. And you may be an amazing person. It's just like.
Thank God you weren't born in the 50s, Laura.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was born in the 70s. And like, let me tell you, I was around a lot. My parents were smoking.
My mom smoked too. And that's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like unhealthy. I don't want to kiss an ashtray, the clothes.
That's so
it's
true.
Just all around.
Absolutely.
Unattractive.
So I think it's good to know what those things are and not budge on those things, but at the same time be open. And I think this is a good thing for manifesting. Like, what are the important things? And then kind of help the universe fill in the things that maybe aren't as important.
See, well, she's leading our episode topic of the day, which we'll get into, and it's all going to be dealing with all this, what we're talking about right now, guys. And by the way, Laura Power's on our show. Thank you for being here today. We're so excited to have you. So the episode, guys, today is called The Pursuit of Happiness. Everybody seeks happiness to maintain their good state of mind. A good state of mind leads to new thoughts, which leads to new ideas, which leads to actions, and actions lead to success. How do you continuously manifest what you want in life by staying positive? And so we figured this would be a great show for you to handle this today, Laura, because I feel like manifestation is a huge thing in our lives. And I feel like I need to do it more because I do put things out there in the world, in the universe, but I need to be more aware of that. Because I'm always appreciative of things that come back to me, and I'm just happy that happens. So I need to put more of that out there.
Oh gosh, I think we all do. We tend to kind of edit our dreams, where we're taught whatever is kind of possible for us. And a lot of this is through our family and then society as a whole, when the truth is, I think we can do almost anything, right? And just really getting clear on what it is that you want to experience and put it out there to the world. That the key is that too many people then try to kind of figure out exactly how it's going to happen or control how it's going to happen, instead of just putting it out there and kind of letting the universe take the best path to you. But then the other part of that is you have to do your part, and you have to pay attention. So this is, I think, what I'm good at as a psychic is kind of paying attention to the signs. So recently I was at the Cannes Film Festival, and long story short, my luggage was delayed for 4 days, which let me tell you, that is the worst place to lose your luggage when you're doing all the red carpets and the big parties and everything. So I knew my luggage wasn't there yet. And my first full day there, just navigated intuitively, met some friends for lunch. And then I decided to go try to get tickets, and their ticketing system was down. So you had to go in the Palais to use the kiosk to try.
And you were being challenged.
Yes. But I'm standing at the kiosk and it says no tickets available. And I'm like, I feel like so I just refreshed a couple of times, and then one comes up, and I'm grab it. Someone probably just canceled. And so I got the opening ceremony tickets. Big deal. These on the market, they're sold between 5 to 10K a piece. If you're buying them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, great. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. It's in 2 hours. No luggage.
Yeah. No clothes, no nothing.
Yeah. No dress, no bag, no shoe, nothing. I just have literally my jeans and my wedges. And so I'm just okay, universe, and I just am oh, reach out to the people I had lunch with, and connected with a designer, and they're here, we literally I ran to a store, bought shoes, bought a little clutch bag, went. The first dress I tried on was perfect, and in 2 hours I was on the red carpet in my gorgeous dress.
But the good news is you never stressed out, and that's the thing. I feel like I'm by stressing, you didn't go negative Nelly and say why me,
and be
me.
Yeah, exactly. I fully believe if you have faith, that it will manifest for you. Several years ago, I decided a week before the Oscars I want to go to the Oscar parties and stuff, and so I was in Denver, booked a flight. One of my friends and clients was I think I can get us one thing, but I'm not sure. So we had a backup plan, and then sure enough, got into the Four Seasons party, and then we met a woman there. Was I think I can get us in the after party. She did.
That's the best.
The end of the night, I was literally getting a serenade with Jamie Foxx. It's a long story, but literally at the piano, Baby Grand. I have selfie video with Jamie Foxx. So no tickets so just that navigating and that faith and the belief, and just keep going.
And awareness, being aware, first of all. So, and this is
Yes.
one thing that I try to teach my kids, the same thing. So my daughter, I always tell her every time I go, if you don't put yourself out there, you never know what you're going to get. And you're missing out on so much stuff. Just being present and taking a chance, that's 100,000 times better than just going, no, I can't, And so I try to always tell everyone, I go, you got to at least put your foot forward and just go, well, what if? And that's when the best stuff happens.
I don't even like that word can't.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
We can do whatever we want.
I always do.
I say that to my kids all the time. You can be, and we can have whatever we want in this life.
Yeah.
Especially living in the time that we do and in the place that we do. I think that's
so much
always
access.
energetically true, but with the internet, with how we connect now, with technology, with the ability to travel literally across the world in 8 hours.
That's true.
It's it's true. It's such a magical, powerful time for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also, guys out there listening and watching, I also believe that, with this episode topic of pursuit of happiness, always remember to tell yourself that don't let anyone ever bring you down and squash your dreams. I'm sorry. It's just like, yes, if you suck at something, let you figure that out on your own. But for the most part, if someone says that you can't do it, like you said, Jamie, don't listen to them. Just give it a try anyways. Just do what you want to do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, you got to know when to quit though. I do say you'd have to know when to quit, but don't quit from even before you start.
Yeah. I mean, if I listened to what everyone else said, then I mean, I wouldn't even be here.
Well, you would be.
Because like, even with shooting, they were like, you should just quit now. You're never going to be good, blah, blah, blah. But for me, that was like fuel, and it motivated me to be better. Like, yes, I can. I can do whatever I want. Like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? Like, I can be good. I may have to work a little bit harder, but I can do this.
Right.
And I did.
And what's wrong with just self-achievement? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with not doing it just for yourself?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you decide on like, you know what, I want to do this and just do it, but that doesn't mean you have to be the best at it or great at it, but at least you tried
I'm not
it.
like I'm not the best shooter in the world. I'm still competing with all the top athletes.
You're better than me.
Am I in the top 5?
Yeah.
No, but I'm having an amazing time, and
all
I
that matters.
love doing it. And every match I shoot, I learn something new.
Love that. And this is why coming back to you now, like with your intro, I was like going, you're always doing your best authentic self because you're going after things that you want to do. And things just manifest for you because you're open to it. And that's one thing that I admire about you from day one. So
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's many different reasons to do things. It's not always to be the best, but it's also just what do you enjoy, what lights you up.
Right.
And also that there's so many magical opportunities that are a combination of all of the things. So undergrad for me is in theater. I did improv for years, like was an improv troupe. So, a few years ago, I was offered to be on Will Ferrell's podcast, the Ron Burgundy podcast, which is him as the
which
anchor
is great,
man.
by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I did listen to that one. It was really funny and good.
And I'm just bringing that as an example of like how so many things came together for me in that opportunity. So I have an improv, background. I have comedy background. This was a comedy podcast that was improvised, means unscripted. So you have to just kind of go
on
with
your
whatever.
toes.
Yeah. It was a podcast. I've been podcasting for 11 years. I have a lot of media experience. I'm a psychic. So it was about me being a psychic, so it was like all these things that seem like not that connected to each other, but in that opportunity, it was like the perfect culmination for me to take advantage and like do that. So whatever, whether it's ballet and accounting or, whatever, like it's seen these things that can seem like really disconnected. There's always some magic in the universe where it all comes together.
Is there anything that you're aspiring to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask too.
Well, gosh.
No, you weren't.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
So one of the things I'm focusing more on now is singing and songwriting. And
I knew you were going to say that.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you're very intuitive.
I had a feeling. That's so crazy.
I wasn't thinking that.
That's what I just like visualized and saw.
So I think you're clairvoyant. So you saw it. So, with those who have this, you can have this kind of like psychic conversation. Or I frequently am answering people unasked questions because, I just get it on a level.
Yeah, that's great.
But I've been a singer since I was a kid. My parents were actually musicians when I was a kid growing up. And so I would sing backup. And I, was actually on the news as a little kid when I was 10 for writing our school song. And like, it's always been a thing for me. But I had so much programming in my family and from society about like, that's not a viable sort of option.
Right.
And so now I'm like giving myself permission to really just go into it. So I sing here in Las Vegas regularly.
great.
Where?
So like tonight I'll be at the Virgin Casino.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of places, supper
Okay.
clubs, casinos. I sing at events. And then I would love to do more with the songwriting piece. I'm taking a music licensing course right now. So like so inspiring to me recently. Do you watch Stranger Things?
Yeah.
My kids do. It scares me though.
So good. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an intense show, but it's so inspiring as a songwriter. So Kate Bush wrote the song Running Up That
Love
Hill
that
like 35
song.
years ago.
Yes.
It's been number one.
I know.
And it's just incredible. It's such a good song, but it shows
know
the
the song?
power of
No,
songwriting.
but
If
I'm
you
gonna
heard it, you
listen.
will. But it's like it's on back on the radio, like play, like big time. It's like big time play again. And this song's been out for how long now?
I
you
think
said?
it's 35
been-
years.
35
And then now
years.
it's like
Can we
cycling
listen to
again.
it when we get in the
It's
car?
amazing. Like I like
Yeah.
Meg. There's a Meg something that I use sings another version of it, but it's the same. But her voice is incredible
Yeah.
as well. But Kate Bush, I love that track. And hearing it on the radio, because I don't listen to radio much, the other day I was like, wait, what the hell? And this is the fourth time I've heard this song on the radio. And I go, oh, it's
you
relevant
love it?
again. And I forgot that someone told me, Chris, that was on straight. And I go, that's right. That's why. So
Yeah. And for me again, it's all connected because I channel a lot of my music. Like it comes to me. So back when I was building my psychic business, I was making my living as an actress in theater. And the director would ask me to write songs for the production. So one day he's like, hey, Laura, can you write a song about cats for tomorrow? And I was like, okay, I had no ideas. And then it just comes, like things just comes to me like in a download. And I know that it's a psychic and their spirits and, sort of muse kind of energy that's bringing it to me. And so it's still using my abilities, but in a different way than,
Right.
Doing a reading for somebody.
like that. So you touched upon something just now. So I feel like I always tell everyone this. I think we've discussed this. People are like, well, how do you do your podcast? How do you do this? How do you do this? I said, like, everything comes to me when I get asked to do something. I'm not that person just to do it unless I feel it. And most of the time, everything that I've done, well, 100% of the stuff that I've done in my life that I felt like I've excelled at came to me in a dream. So when I have that dream, then I wake up and go, I must be meant to do this. And then that's when I pursue it and go full on 100% tilt. So
I love
it's just
that.
like getting this workshop that I was telling you about. Like everybody was saying, there's a need. And all of a sudden I went to bed when I go, I need to do this. I need to take this and by the bull by the horn and do it. And it's going to happen in a week from now. So and things happen quickly when I decide on doing something as well. Like I do not procrastinate. So
I think that's often the case of something being spiritual aligned is when it just kind of comes together. But then we also have our own resistance, and it's important that we not sort of predetermine how long something will take, because a lot of times we're so close to something.
Yeah, right.
And it'll be just around the corner. So I love, there's a book called An Actor's Life by Jenna Fisher from the American version of The Office. And she talks a lot about this, and I think it's a great example where she was a working actress for about 10 years, and she just wasn't where she thought she should be. Like she was working, she had an agent and manager, but she just thought she would be farther along. And then she literally decided she was going to quit. She told her agent and her manager, I'm done. And they both thankfully were like, no, we're not going to let you do this. Like, you need to keep going. And it was right after that she got The Office, which was a big changing,
yeah, exactly.
her.
So how do you know when your time's up though? How do you pursue something, which I said a little bit ago, that you follow it, but then there's a time where you just have to know it's time to quit. How do you physically, mentally, spiritually know that time? Like her manager said this, that, hey, keep going. She trusted them enough to continue to go. But when does your body tell you and your mind tell you, I think it's time for me to stop?
I think that's a tricky one.
Like give up the dream.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say don't ever give up the dream. Maybe it's just modifying it a little bit in a different way or approaching it in a different way. I really feel that, we can have our dreams, aside from like, maybe it's a specific person. I'm like, you want to marry a certain person or something, like that's a separate, whatever,
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about, but just like a path for yourself. I just think never give up, just focus on, what is it that I need to change in myself or work on to bring it in. And also when you have those messages, think of like, where is this coming from? Is this coming from like, I don't want that anymore? If you don't want something anymore, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because that can happen where you're like, my passions have changed. I just don't desire that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Outcome anymore. But if it's like you still want it, then I think it's important to look at your programming, to do things to change your energy, maybe try a different approach or strategy, but not to give up if it's important to you.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a very good point.
I guess it depends on the day and mood.
Yeah, I guess
Some
that's
days
true,
it's
too.
important to me, and then other days I'm like, not today.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's right. And maybe I was just thinking that there's sometimes another side to it. Like maybe you weren't meant to be in, like, for instance, in front of the camera, maybe you're meant behind the camera, which you're still getting the same aspect of the world, but you're using your talents in a better way or a different way, I guess,
And just navigating intuitively, because sometimes there's a different way into it than you might think
Correct.
or something.
Yeah.
And so, we tend to approach things from a very logical, analytical perspective, but sometimes that's actually not the fastest route to
Okay.
what we want to bring in.
Okay. You mean just take the leap of faith is what you're saying?
Take the faith, but also follow that intuition, follow the nudges. So I've so many times in my history where I wanted to do something, and then the way that it came about was not at all the way that you quote unquote get that to happen.
Got it.
So I've had a lot of success with media, and that's where a lot of people find out about me. And that was something that became clear to me very early on. So when I very first started my business, and it was still during the recession, and I just knew that I needed to get out there. And so I asked the angels to help me, and I got this message to do readings at a local coffee shop. I did not want to do that, I'll be honest. Like, my master's degree is in political science. This was like this kind of coming out of the psychic closet for me. It was like hard to put myself out there in a public situation at that point. But the message was so strong. So I finally was like, okay, guides, I'll do that. And I printed off a flyer in my home computers, like not designed at all. We didn't have Canva, or I didn't have it anyway back then, and just put it in the flyer of the or the window of the coffee shop. And that same day, the managing editor of the local newspaper called and asked if he could write a story about me.
That's
so
great.
The very first time I was going to do readings at the local coffee shop, he interviewed me. I gave him a reading. He watched me do a reading. And then 2 days later, it was in the regional newspaper.
Wow.
And doing the readings in the coffee shop had nothing to do with actually doing the readings in the coffee shop, and had everything to do with being in the newspaper.
It's taking the chance.
Wow.
I
right?
feel like,
And I literally only did that for a few times,
Okay.
those readings. And then it was like, that's what it was for.
Right. But you could have gone that 50-50 route. Like you said, you're like, do I really want to do this? And you stuck with it and did it though.
And it brought about so many wonderful things for me. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes we get these intuitive nudges, and sometimes we're like, I don't want to do that. But the truth is, it was not bad. Like, in my mind, I was like, people are going to judge me, or I'll feel weird, or like,
Right.
Yeah.
because I was brand new, poli-sci brain, like government worker, former government worker. So it just took a lot for me to, just kind of move through that resistance and fear that was coming up for me about that. But then so many good things. And from that, I got lots of other media, television, and, so many opportunities. That's literally how so many people find about me through my business.
I love that. How do you fight the fear? How do you tell someone out there, hey, like you said, because we're always fighting ourselves, saying, you want to do something, but they're just afraid to do it, because it's the fear that keeps a lot of people from doing something, where they always say that the fear should propel you to actually, want to get out there and do something. So, but I feel like it discourages a lot of people, when they have these thoughts or ideas.
Yeah. So a couple of things I would say to that. One is that your brain, in a lot of ways, doesn't know the difference between excitement and fear. They actually biologically are very similar physiologically.
Right.
So
It's
if
a
you can
roller
just
coaster.
kind of reprogram yourself
feeling,
to be
that's
like,
true.
oh, this is excitement. I'm just excited about this. There's a phrase, a sort of mantra that I heard when I was getting some psychic training that was actually very effective, which is, when you get nervous, focus on service.
Okay.
So just shift back into like, what am I trying to do here? Like,
Okay.
And a lot of times it takes it out of that ego mind and back to like, oh yeah, I'm trying to do a reading for someone, or I'm trying to, whatever it is that at that time
like acts of
was,
service,
causing
basically.
me. Yeah. It's like refocusing your brain onto like what you're wanting it to focus on, instead of like whatever is popping up. And then the breath is so huge. Like, when we're afraid or nervous, we unconsciously hold our breath. And it's amazing how when we just naturally breathe and just really focus on that breath, breathe deeply in and deeply out, and it just, a lot of that stress just goes away.
Right. The only thing I can relate to that is going on a roller coaster about 2 weeks ago, and
Did you hold your breath?
I always do, but here's the thing: we went on it twice, because after, once again, the fear and the excitement, I was like, you people brace yourself. And they scream though, but I never realized why people screamed on a roller coaster. So for the first time in my life, I lived the second time around. This was my little 8-year-old, my 4-year-old. I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. Why am I screaming, right? So I'm going down the second time, and I go, I'm going to try and scream the first time. And when I screamed, it let out all of this. I felt so comfortable. And I was like, but every time I hold my breath, it's like, I feel my heart going in my throat, and I feel all jammed up, and I'm like this. But the second time I was like, oh, this is why people like kind of just let the air out and just relax.
I love that for you.
Yeah, and it was the most exhilarating thing I've ever been on my entire life.
I just want to know, was your scream like a,
no,
or was it like a,
It's called my eyes being closed, going, ah! And then all of a sudden, I think I screamed too early. I told my little
Oh
my
my
daughter, I go, I think I screamed too early and I lost my breath. And all of a sudden, I was like, you know, I got all choked up. Yeah, it was a mess. That was a total mess. All right, is there anything else you want to ask Laura today?
I want to ask her a bunch of stuff. What about when you're like in a psychic situation or like doing a reading, but you see something that may be a little negative? Do you hold back or do you let them know?
Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think so much of this has to do with what is the purpose of the reading from their
okay.
perspective? Like, why are they coming to me? And then sometimes I'll get things that are for me to know as a psychic, and sometimes they're for me to share. So I always check in, like, is this for me to just know, to understand the situation
Right.
and how I'm communicating? Or is this that it would be beneficial for them to know that?
Okay.
So that's a really important, thing to check.
That's
Yeah.
actually really good. You're like the middleman. You're taking it because you have to learn the information on what that side is before you share it anyway. So I see that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like, okay, this is just for me to know with how I communicate whatever it is that I am communicating.
Okay.
And why is this person coming to me? I think that's the difference, honestly, between like someone who has psychic ability and someone who's a really good professional psychic is their ability to navigate that part.
And deliver
sort of,
the message.
and their sort of bedside manner, so
Right.
to speak. Can you be kind and still honest and heartfelt and share whatever is important for that person to know?
Okay.
Not from your perspective, but truly for them. Because sometimes we can think, oh, that's the right thing, but it's like we have our own sort of ideas. But for example, sometimes someone is really going through something for purpose of the spiritual growth and development, and that's not ours to judge or decide.
Right.
Yeah.
What-
So
Yeah.
they need to kind of go through that and then
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So they're you just don't step in.
It's just about looking at it from this kind of divine, bigger perspective versus just the sort of human perspective. So a lot of people, for example, will incarnate. There's a book I'd recommend if you want to learn more about this. It's called Your Soul's Plan, and it's by a guy named Rob Schwartz. He's been on my podcast as well. And it's about the soul plan that we make for a life before we're born. So
Yeah.
why would someone choose to get cancer or be in an abusive relationship or, come in and, they feel like they're the wrong gender? There's so
Right.
many things that we're like, God, that seems...
I wholeheartedly believe in all that for me.
Yeah.
I tell everyone, I go, you know what? I go, your soul is your soul. I go, it's something
Yeah.
that it just is given to you, and you have a past that it's like you don't know where that path led, but I sometimes can see it from body language on people once again on how a person is, because it's like you're carrying something that's like, was given probably to someone else and recycled, whatever it is, which is fine and dandy, but there's so many generational things going on and you might get a piece of it or whatever like that. And so I always think that for instance, I'm not going to say on air, but I feel like my 14-year-old has that for sure. Like there's some things where I can see this past in her going, man, you've had some serious like shit in your past soul life.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that past life trauma stuff.
Yeah.
So for anyone who has intuitive or psychic abilities, there's a lot of what we call the witch wound, which is where we have a hard time getting visible because we've been burned or, hung as a witch or whatever.
Right, yeah.
in a time when not so that we were a witch, but like society accused us of being a witch for being intuitive or being a healer, or just simply being an empowered woman.
Maybe I was hung.
Yeah. And so it's just very important to acknowledge that where unconsciously, many, strong women, this is the case. Just to acknowledge that it can keep you from really stepping into your power and your path, because it's this unconscious trauma that's back there.
No. Well, mine's easier than that, girls. My past life, I tell you exactly, and I tell you when this is, I go, in my past life, I think I was royalty. I know for a fact that I was royalty. Somewhere in my past, I'm serious. Like, I'm not saying like I had a really good, like happy, it projects for me, I was royalty.
I'm getting a visual of Coming to America.
Well, I immediately started talking, I saw Egypt.
Oh,
Really?
for me, thank you.
I'm seeing him in the bath with all these women around him,
I
bathing
will
him.
take that as well. I will take that 1,000 times over. But I always felt that way. I go, I feel like in my past life, I was some sense of royalty, and I love life, and I was doing good for others. It wasn't like a hoard. I was like, I wanted to do good, and that's the way I feel like in my life right now. So I highly believe that.
Laura, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Did you feel anything when you came in the room with me?
I immediately liked you and your energy, and you're obviously a beautiful woman, but also you have a beautiful energy. Much like Christopher was saying that it's not just the physical aspect.
Yeah.
I feel you're very powerful. Like that came forward right away, but also that I do see that you have a really good heart.
Yeah, and you do. And there's something about her, and thank you for saying that because I agree with that as well. There's something about her where I still get, I'm not so much anymore, but there's moments where I was like, dang, she really is for me. Like she always said, Chris, she goes, I'm here with you and I want you to win. And you always said, and I appreciate that so much. And I'm like, what does that mean? But then you've proven it time and time again that she is my advocate, and I love her to death for that, because it takes a moment for sometimes to really, because like I said, you do have a little bit of a shell every now and then. And so, but when you say that, it's like, well, do I believe that? Because I know that she does a little bit, but it took a while for me to finally go, she has my back, because she's proven it time and time and again, and that's one thing that I appreciate, and I love you for that. So.
I feel like most people in my circle, like I want to see them win.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the healthy way to be, right?
Yes.
And if you have people that are telling you something is impossible, like that chemical, I'm like, you're probably in the wrong circle. Like, just get some new friends.
Yeah. And then if someone has a goal, I'm like, ooh, how are we going to create this?
Yeah.
Let's go.
She's
I love that.
Big fan
Team
of all
player.
that stuff. Yeah. But you wouldn't, on the outer part, like we say, people judge from the outer side of what they see on the outside, but because they don't take time to learn what's on the inside. And that's one thing that like we said, like with you or whomever, I've had people come to me and say the same thing. They go, are you really like this? And I go, what, like being genuine? I go, yeah, I'm like this all the time. I go, what you see is what you get. I never sway from who I am. A friend of mine asked me on 4th of July, she was like, so you would never, if someone thought something bad of you, would you care? And I go, no, not really, because then they're not really my friend, and I don't give a shit, It's
Absolutely.
and she kept asking. She goes, so what I'm asking you? She goes, if you did something like say this in person, da 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 da. She goes, and if someone judged you for that reason, she goes, you wouldn't care. I go, well, first of all, I know that they wouldn't think that of me, and this is why I'm very honest and open all the time. I feel like anything I say, if they take it the wrong way, that's on them. It's not on me.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a really good way to handle it. And just thinking about, is that the kind of energy you want in your life?
Right. No.
Whether someone's insulting or just even how they're treating other people or handling things in general.
Yeah.
And just the analogy the guides gave me, which I love, is that our minds, our lives, and our energy fields are very much like a Netflix queue.
okay.
Like we are cultivating what comes to us through our choices. And that includes the types of people that we interact with,
true.
opportunities. So it's like, if you don't like what's in your queue, just change your choices
But that's
in life.
true.
But we
That's
also
true.
know that's easier said than done, because we've seen a lot of people down where you're like, you can see that they want to change, but they feel like they're in this cycle and they can't get out of it. So what do you tell them?
Well, I think it's about being consistent. And
Okay.
even once you've made a choice, think about the algorithm of like Netflix, for
Yeah,
example.
okay.
Like, let's say you've been watching a lot of horror. By the way, I like Stranger Things, but just as an example. And you're like, I want to watch more lighthearted stuff. I want to watch romantic comedies or just comedies as a whole. It's going to take a while for that horror stuff to get out of your queue,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's still in there for a while. So
That's
you
true.
have to keep refocusing and affirming through the universe what it is that you want to bring in. You might also get tested a little bit of like, are you sure? Here's this great thing that seems great on the surface or whatever, but you're wanting to release it. Like, so for example, when I got the message to stop drinking, and it was a clear message for me. I used to be a heavy drinker, by the way. And I remember when I decided to stop drinking, and I literally started to get offers to get paid to drink. Like, so I was living in LA, and they would like cast you, so you'd
Okay.
go get paid several $100s to go like get bottle service at a bar because they want certain people,
They're trying to suck you back in.
Yeah.
wasn't it?
And it was like, here, you'll get paid to have this great. And I was like, nope. Like, in some cases, I would go and I'd just get paid and I would just drink the mixers or whatever. But it was just like a fascinating thing how sometimes the things you're trying to release will almost kind of woo you.
Yeah.
At the end
Right.
as well,
So just
to
having
get
the
you to
discipline.
question. Yeah.
Wow. It's like a test all
stay
the
the
time.
course.
We're being tested all the time, people. Yeah.
Just test it on do we really want that? Are we really sure that we're ready to make that change?
Okay. Man. Yeah, I like this. I'm gonna walk around her all day. You're like my psychic pal all day long. Here's my clairvoyance right here. Clairvoyance. All right, anything else you want to ask?
No, I love everything that you've brought to the table.
Totally.
and-
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, then we are going to jump into the question today, Laura. You can
Oh,
see how let's
great.
test the other side
Do
over there.
it. All right.
Here we go. Let's see. Hi, Christopher and Jamie. Can't get enough of the podcast. I live in Hawaii and I watch you guys on YouTube every Tuesday morning when you release your new episode with my morning coffee. Christopher, you make me laugh so hard every time. And Jamie, love you. And your outfits are always great. So here's my question. 40-something female, CEO of a marketing firm, just coming out of an 8-year marriage. Finally starting to date again, but I think I might like women. I want to explore all, you saw that curveball? Yeah. I want to explore all of my dating options on both sides of the fence, but how do I go about looking for my match?
Wow. First of all, I think we're in a time where we're really being asked to just be our authentic self and be true to who we are. And it's grateful to be in the United States where that's a lot easier to make these kinds of choices than some places where it's not. But follow your heart and just be vulnerable and authentic. And just for anyone with anything, I would say ask the angels to help you.
Right.
And Raphael is the angel that's really great for love.
Okay.
So just ask Raphael to help connect.
Hey, Raphael. What's up, buddy? What do you think, honey?
You know what? I was just thinking, like before I went to Hawaii, I had rainbows on my nails and I got hit on by so many girls. I was in yoga and I was like, I asked my kids, I'm like, you guys, and they're like, Mom, you have freaking rainbows on your nails. So maybe like bring a rainbow.
Yeah, good one.
Just being silly, but really, maybe seek out some groups, like different groups, that are like open to that and just putting yourself in those environments because, just being open to the possibility.
Okay. Well, you actually just answered something I was going to ask her. It's just like on the possibility of the fact that I was going to say, where is this? You must be around a lot of women in order to start feeling this way. And these women, my question is, I wonder if are they gay or are they whatever? But if you're feeling this vibe and you're hanging around a certain group of people, you just kind of answer that. So there are a lot of women on the island for you to choose from. So just take your time and go out and look for them and just basically just be your authentic self, like Laura said and Jamie's saying over here. And also be open to that. Because if you're kind of wondering if you might be or might want to go out with a woman, you're kind of on that fence right now, right? Which means that she's blocking herself from just finding that person, I think. So, no, I think I do know.
You know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she's blocking herself, which we all do sometimes.
Wait, so how is she blocking herself?
Because right here it says that she was finally starting to dating, but I think I might like women. And so she goes, how do I want to explore my dating on both sides of the fence?
If she thinks, then I think she
does.
does.
It's new for her.
So she just needs to be like open to the possibilities. Yeah. And then, putting yourself out there. And if it works, great. If not, then
and maybe just taking the leap and asking someone out, because the other person might be.
That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I feel like she needs to ask. Why does she need to wait?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just being playful too.
Right.
I think we tend to get in this very kind of like
I
serious.
love flirting.
I don't like the serious. Yeah.
Just be lighthearted, especially with love. I think that's especially important.
100%.
That's hard though. That's hard because
being playful?
Sometimes, like I'm so flirty and playful, but I feel like sometimes it gives the wrong message.
Yeah, some people take it the wrong way.
But then,
well, in the right context.
Okay,
right.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, sometimes I do treat my potential relationships like a business.
Yes, which is a very masculine thing to do. Where a lot of women are kind of operating on the masculine side of their personality because that's what we've been taught to do.
Right.
Which I've tried to be more intentional with my feminine energy.
Okay.
And
So
like
you're saying that
letting a
when you-
man take charge because I do tend to be a little more alpha.
Okay, but you're saying when you really like someone, you do that. You're saying, is that what you just said? Is that what you just said? When she really likes like if that's someone you're pursuing and that you get a little bit more business.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
Then I
right.
treat it like a business
Okay.
versus being like open and just kind of going with the flow. Because then I start saying, okay, well, what are your non-negotiables? And I start asking the hard questions right off the get.
Yeah, I think that's very common, especially for successful women.
Yeah.
Where they kind of try to manage it like a business instead of like that's
Right.
not
Instead
very
of being
conducive to
open.
love.
Yeah, so I feel like
Here's my business card.
Exactly.
Here's my time card. I'm checking in right now, Jamie.
So yeah, being able to tap into that feminine energy and then just being open
Right.
to going with the flow.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
key, I think.
Laura, same for you. How's your dating life, by the way? We didn't even tap into this thing.
Yeah, so I just got out of a fairly long-term relationship, and so I'm fairly new
Okay.
back in the scene.
Wait, I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but you're not
yeah.
talking about the marriage during COVID. Is that the long term you're talking about? Because you had mentioned you were
No,
married during...
I was not during COVID. I was
Sorry.
married during the recession, like
Okay,
the other,
sorry, the
like
right,
the
sorry,
other
I was thinking,
earlier one.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
No, that was with my ex-husband. I wasn't married in this last go round.
Okay.
How long was it?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm fairly new and
All
just
right.
kind of reacclimate. I think anytime you get out of a long relationship, it's good to kind of take a little time and kind of like figure out where you are. So did that, and I'm just kind of starting to get back out
Okay.
there.
What you got telling you, Laura?
I just think that actually what I was just saying to you is one of the things I've been really guided, like I need to get back into my feminine because by the way, I have a lot of past lives as a man. Like I
Okay.
look very feminine, but I'm very familiar with navigating as a man
That's
in terms of like energy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I need to like learn more how to receive and be in the receptive
Yes.
place and be pursued versus like me, like
Okay.
gonna get some business done.
Yeah. Because we take charge. So I'm like,
Yes.
all right, when are you free? When am I going to see you? Instead of just being like, you know what? Just be open to like accepting and let them be
Yes.
the man.
Yeah.
Totally. Yes. So that's definitely something I've been like consciously like it's a guided thing. And in my whole life, I've been guided to be more in feminine energy. And it's funny because
So
I think
hard.
even the psychic piece is a part of that. It's the intuitive receiving
Okay.
piece versus the sort of action driving thing, which is the very masculine type of energy. So I think from a spiritual perspective, we're all trying to get that kind of balance
Right.
in
Well,
ourselves.
and I
So-
understand that because it's like, especially once again with the world the way it is, it's so competitive, and now it's like there's so much change going on, and there's
Right.
it's like what we always say on this show. It's that like for me being a guy, like with the Me Too movement, you want a strong woman, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, well the woman has to sometimes let the guy kind of take the lead, and with chivalry and stuff like that. I did this episode on chivalry once before, and I find that chivalry's dead. Not in my heart, but I feel like it's, because women want, like, I remember opening this door for this woman. She goes, I could have gotten that by myself. And I said, you know what? I would still open it for you though. Like that, because I'm not going to change who I am.
I think that's the kind thing to do.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I'm not going to change who I am just because you feel, I'm
Yeah.
glad you feel that way, and I appreciate that, but I'm not going to change who I am. So.
It's almost like you do it for yourself.
Well, it's instilled in me though.
Yeah.
I do it for my mom.
Well,
I'm sorry.
well, yeah.
My mom would
You
kill
know
me.
what I mean, yeah.
Right, exactly. So of course, right,
Yeah.
Mom? Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. So Laura, thank you so much for coming on the
thank
show.
you,
You're
Laura.
amazing. Yeah, we'll definitely
my
got to have you on
pleasure.
again because
I
there's
would
so
love
many more
to.
avenues to go with this with
Oh
you.
my gosh, there's so much, especially in the psychic sort of, but
Yeah.
there's other stuff too. I'm happy to. You guys are fabulous.
Okay. Yeah, we should bring on a guest and have her like.
Yeah, would you be open to doing a reading, a live reading?
I'm happy to do the on-air reading. I can do whatever, looking at relationship dynamics or like a channeling of like what's going on from a spiritual level for that person in love. That's one of the things I do for clients. And the other thing you can do is like look at past life dynamics. Like let's say there's someone, maybe you have a really hard time that you just can't let them go, or an ex that you always think about.
Cutting ties.
Yeah, cutting ties, but also looking at like what are the past life patterns.
Okay.
Because I guarantee if you've had someone like that in your life, you've almost certainly had past lives with that person. So looking at the past lives can really inform you about the current situation. Like, why is this so intense, or why are these dynamics there?
So
really
that's my current girlfriend of 5 years. We dated for 5 months. I broke with her. Remember Jamie, my Jamie.
I know.
So 17 years, and then and I tell her in the story, I go during my course of my marriage, not in a bad way, but every now and then I would go, did I choose the right one? And every girlfriend every ex-girlfriend, I never think about in that way ever. But for some reason, this one woman, I was like, did I choose the right woman? My ex is amazing, by the way. Don't get me wrong. She's an amazing woman as well. I've got two beautiful daughters from her. But for this one, I could not let go.
Yeah.
And now we're together. And when we got together, probably for some weird way, I just said happy birthday to her 4 months after when I was separated. And for some reason, she was in the right space at the right time, and I wasn't, and it just worked. And 5 years going on 5 years.
And I love you
amazing.
guys together.
And I always tell you, I will never let you go because she's like my heart. Like everything about her is just everything that just drives me to be who I am today.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I like that. So, all right, well, guys, we can keep this one all day because there's so much more to do.
So good.
Yeah. All right. So we haven't even tackled Beyond the Grave yet with her. No, I'm kidding. So.
Oh, jeez.
I'm just kidding. All right, guys. So that's another episode. Laura, before you go, anything you would like to plug right now
Yes.
that's going on right now with you?
Gosh. So I have a lot of things. I have several books on Amazon. If you are interested in media specifically, I'm just getting to say I'm about to do a class on how to book media.
Great.
Because it's such a door opener. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you're interested in a session or want to connect. Bookings at laurapowers.net is my email, and I'm on Instagram at laurapowers44.
Laura Powers,
love
44. And Jamie, what do you have going on today?
Oh, what do I have going on? Why are you laughing at me?
You crack me up.
Shout out to Imperium Roots. Thank you guys so much for the CBD. Make sure you guys check them out. And yeah, I'm excited for my lobstering trip.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys. And you can check me out at anything for all of us, anything at Dating Intelligence and on all social media stuff. And for my personal at Fetch Sport. And this has been another great episode. Travis behind the helm back there helping us out.
You.
I know, forgive me, blasphemy. Sorry, Travis. And I've been giving him props all day,
Yeah.
It's like just a slip because usually the other one's in at this time of the day. All right, so this is another great episode today. And thank you once again. We'll see you soon.